yourself, now why did I know that? I knew that wasn't going to turn out right when I started. Have you done that before? Not only did you know better when it's over, but when you were about to do it, you said to yourself, why am I doing this? I know it ain't going to turn out right, but you did it anyway. You see, the experiences of life help us to start limiting those mistakes that we do not make them over and over and over. But as I said earlier, you can have good and bad experiences. There can be bad experiences in life. One thing about experience, and I know a lot of you military people will understand this very well, the more experience you have, the less excuses you can have. You see, if you're just doing something for the first time, you can get by with, well, I've never experienced that before, I didn't know any better. But as you gain experience, you start eliminating those excuses. You can't use those excuses anymore. It's like that in life. Christ has equipped us with everything that we'll need to get by in life. But a lot of times we find ourselves committing the same sins over and over. But there comes a point when you just can't get by with, Lord, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, I didn't know any better. Because He's given you the experiences and He's equipped you with the wisdom to know what is right and what is wrong. So there comes a time when, you can't get by with, I didn't know any better. The excuses now end. Thing about experience is that it's always costly. Usually when you gain experiences in life, you've paid a high price to gain it. I know most of the things that I've learned the most from in my life came at a high cost. I had a situation where I loaned somebody when I was in the military on my way from Macon to Virginia. It was my first big trip away from home, fixing to go to the ship that I was going to be stationed at. And I pulled into a bus stop, and there was a guy behind me, and he told me that he was on the same bus and he was going to the same duty station as me. But I was dressed in my uniform, so when he approached me with asking me if I was in the Navy, I just was amazed that somebody recognized I was in the Navy. I didn't think, well, I've got my naval uniform on. But anyway, he told me that he needed to borrow some money because he had just took a cab up to the bus station and he only had a $100 bill and the cab driver didn't have change. And he said, do you have change so I can go pay the cab driver? I said, well, it just so happens that I have 5 20s. He said, well, if you'll give me those, I'll run back to the cab driver. I'll get the $100 bill because he's staying out there waiting for me, and then I'll bring you the $100 bill. So I gave him my 5 20s, and I sat there and waited, and waited, and waited. Well, as the bus started to load up and head back, I went out to the parking lot, and I didn't see the guy or the cab anywhere. I realized that I'd been sort of taken as a fool. Anyway, I got back on the bus and made it to the duty station. And I called my dad and I told him what had happened. He said, well, chalk that $100 up to educational expense. He said, because you just had your education in life. It came at a high price, that experience. That I realized that everybody wasn't like they were in the little town that I grew up in. And even though it was Macon, and that's a lot bigger than a lot of the smaller towns, I still have my own little circle, and I'd never had somebody that had intentionally tried to rip me off. It came at a price, but it taught me a valuable lesson. I gained wisdom and understanding through that. There's an old saying, I don't know how old it is, I've heard it a lot of times around Keita, and I think that her mom has used it a bunch, and I think that might have been the first time that I'd heard it. A lot of y'all have probably heard it, but it's when you don't learn from your mistakes is when experiences become costly. But the saying is, And I think hopefully I'll get this right. Catch me once, shame on me. Catch me once, shame on you. Catch me twice, shame on me. We gain wisdom and understanding in life through experiences. And if something happens to us one time, that might be all right. But if we let something happen to us again, we can't start blaming everybody else. We have to take the blame ourselves. I'm going to finish up real quick, but I want to tell you a little story. It's about a fox, a wolf, and a bear. They had all been out hunting, and they had all caught a deer. And as they gathered around, the bear said, "How should we divide up the 3 deer that we have caught?" And the wolf said, "Well, I think since we have 3 and there's 3 of us, each one of us should get a deer." With that, the bear ate the wolf. So the bear looked over at the fox and he said, "How do you think we should divide this?" And he said, "Well, I think you should get the wolf's deer, keep your own deer, and I think you should have my deer." And the bear said, "Where did you gain such wisdom?" And the fox said, "I learned it from the wolf." Proverbs was written in the Old Testament. And it talked about gaining wisdom and gaining understanding. But it was before Christ came. And I wonder if that same scripture had been written after Christ had come. What exactly would it mean? And as I sat there and I thought this weekend about that, we have experiences in life that we learn from that can help other people. And as Christians, as disciples of Christ, we have got to start paying that more attention. We have got to start using our wisdom and the understanding that Christ has given us to be better disciples for Christ. We need to start out 2011 not just learning from our experiences to make our lives a little better and a little easier and getting a little more understanding on making the right choices, but we need to use those experiences and that wisdom to begin 2011 into telling more people about Jesus Christ. We go through life and almost everything that we do is to gain wisdom to help ourselves. But we cannot let another day pass without people knowing just how much Jesus does really love them and just how much Jesus can help them. There's a lot of people out there. I just did a funeral a week ago for a man that decided that this life here was not better than the life beyond here. The experience that he has gained in life were so hard that he decided that it was time to move on and to end his life. And I wonder how many Christians, how many disciples of Christ that he passed throughout those days and weeks and months leading up to his death that didn't think that it was worth letting him know that there was something greater than the difficulties of this life. We have been given wisdom and an understanding from Christ, and we have to tell people about Jesus Christ. We cannot keep living and going through life and making it comfortable and not telling people that there is something out there that is so great and wonderful, and that you do not have to feel lost anymore. I don't care what your financial difficulties are. I don't care what your marital problems are. Christ can repair any bank account. He can repair any marriage. He can heal any soul that is empty because they've lost someone that they love so dearly. But it's not going to be gained through wisdom if we do not tell someone about it. If we keep it to ourselves for our own wisdom, it will not help anyone. Please, in 2011, make sure, even if it's just one time, and I hope it's more than once, but even if it's just one time, please tell one person this year about Jesus Christ. I don't know how many we have here. I'm thinking probably 70 or 80. But wouldn't it be wonderful if 80 people in 2011 came to know Christ just because of the people gathered here this morning? Man, that would be a wonderful thing. We are going to end within the garden. Page 314. We are going to open up the altar. I'm going to ask Papa John and Jack, if you would. I'm going to ask Papa John and Jack to come up here to pray with anybody that wants to come pray. I do not want to be hovered over you, touching your stuff. That's one thing that I've gained through wisdom is nobody wants to be coming down with something this time of year, so I don't want to be all in your face, but I'm going to ask Papa John and Jack if they would come down. If y'all would, please stand. We're going to sing. We're going to just